I want to show teachers how to teach or present, or at least allow their students to somehow access, is that it's every day, off stage as well as on stage, what you do, what you hear. You transfer those ideas through the musical instrument that you may use to express yourself, which could just be the voice, drums, or any other instrument. But that's where your source is coming from, and as soon as you know that you have a handle on what you're going to play based on something you heard before, that you're not afraid of understanding that it wasn't you that discovered it first, you got something. When I was a kid, what was happening in Robin's Nest, it was on WINS, I think, 1190 AM radio. It was Basie, Ellington, Sinatra, you name it, Mel Torme, everybody was swinging. So this was what my father would turn on. Along with that, during the day there would be Latin tunes, Latin music. I did not hear rock and roll. I did not hear the blues in the manner of how you may have heard the blues.
Right.
As I got older, listening to musicians at Robert Fulton Park in Brooklyn, they used to play every Saturday morning. Same thing would happen, they'd be playing just drums. And I would remember that, and I wanted to get involved in that because it was another way of communication. It was a communal drumming thing. It was and all of this was bringing me to the foundations of where I flow from today.
Right. I also think that, every generation we have certain music that we grew up with. I think at least for me, Dean and Rick, I would suppose that we grew up listening to Beatles and listening to the popular music of the time, and working our way back from there to more traditional jazz stuff because of listening to more modern jazz stuff and then trying to find out the history of where that came from. And I think for teachers nowadays is to have there's going to be music that their students are listening to, and that also has a history that's going to go back, the influences that allowed that music to come to fruition. And that's sort of a great way to teach, because your students already have an interest in the music of their generation,
right.
But you can also introduce them to more of the history of where that came from and work your way backwards from there. And that's always what we're discovering. As we get older, it seems like we're discovering more of stuff that happened before us. We're always going backwards because so much of that information comes from there.
Yeah, you're right.
So I guess we're looking at a way to try to bridge this information gap between the student and the teacher,
Right.
And that's, I think the easiest way to do that is to say, well, what kind of music do you listen to, and then the kid says, well, I like, let's say for instance, something like, I like Pat Metheny, right? That's still a long time ago because we're, I'm 100 years old, so that, you know what I mean? But the thing is, if they say Pat Metheny, then immediately I go, oh, well, if you like that, what you need to do is you need to listen to Wes Montgomery, and then you also need to listen to Charlie Christian. You can take something that they already like, because I think that's the challenge with teachers is to make sure that you've got a captive audience, that they're engaged.
There's a term in literature, read the classics first because you might not have time to read them. And there's a reason for that, because that's the classic stuff. It's already been distilled down to what is the great stuff, And if you just listen to the brand new stuff that comes out, new and improved, because it's marketed that way and it's supposedly the best thing because it's new, you're going to really rob yourself of a wealth of musical knowledge, and that's really what it's all about. You want to enrich yourself so that just like an athlete has to eat certain types of food, a musician has to listen to good music, good quality music, because if you don't, it finds a way out that's not productive.